I think it's more than safe to say at this point that Terry Bogard is Mr. SNK. The protagonist of SNK's Fatal Fury series and their most front-facing fighting game character, Terry is a character that I believe is important to the media in the same way Ryu is. He has a relatively simple design that's evolved over time, but it's really hard to screw up a design as timeless as Terry's. Terry's appeared in every Fatal Fury game as the main protagonist, with the exception of Mark of the Wolves, where Rock has the focus, though Terry's still around as the only returning veteran in that game. Terry is the adopted son of Jeff Bogard, a well-regarded martial artist in Southtown, where he lived with his other adopted son, Andy. However, Jeff was killed in battle by Southtown crime lord Geese Howard, who had a personal vendetta with Jeff dating back several years. Terry and Andy vowed to get stronger in order to defeat Geese, who'd so coldly left them without a father. They got their chance in the first King of Fighters tournament that formed the basis of the first Fatal Fury game. Together with Joe Higashi, a friend they made along the way, they fight through the tournament and Terry confronts Geese at the top of his tower overlooking Southtown. Terry defeats Geese and knocks him off the tower, seemingly killing him. This wasn't the end of Terry's problems though. A new tournament held by Wolfgang Krauser is held, who, as it turns out, is Geese's half-brother. Geese himself returns during the events of Fatal Fury 3, though he's not the main antagonist there. Terry and Geese's feud came to a boiling point in Ryu Bout Fatal Fury, where he once again fights Geese at the top of his tower and knocks him off. This time, though, Terry actually tries to save Geese, but Geese, being a prideful, spiteful man, knocks Terry's hand away and intentionally falls to his death, laughing maniacally the whole way down. Terry, having been in the position of violently losing a father before, takes in Geese's son, Rock Howard, and raises him, as his mother had also recently passed away. In Mark of the Wolves, he and Rock, now a young adult, enter the new tournament being held by Kane. Rock wins the tournament, and after being teased with information regarding his apparently not dead mom, Rock decides to part ways with Terry to pursue that lead with Kane. Terry, acknowledging that Rock was old enough to make his own decisions now, wished him nothing but the best and trusted that Rock would do what's right for himself. Terry also appears as a character in the King of Fighters series. With regards to Terry, the KOF continuity is mostly the same as Fatal Fury's, with the exception that Geese survives this timeline's event of Ryu Bout, allowing him to take part in the series as well. During the Orochi saga, the series' first story arc, he teams up with Joe and Andy and partakes in the tournament after getting word that Geese may or may not be involved with things. In the next arc, he has more of a background role, but is notably presumed dead by some of the cast between the events of KOF 99 and 2000. This turned out to be Terry deliberately laying low, as he learned that Blue Mary, a comrade also hailing from the Fatal Fury series, was in the crosshairs of the Nest organization and sought to help her. As I said before, Terry's design is relatively simple, but also simply iconic. In the first Fatal Fury game, he wears a red long-sleeve jacket and a white t-shirt with blue jeans and a pair of white sneakers. He also wears a trucker hat that shouts out the Neo Geo. Fatal Fury 2 is the game that largely gave us the design that Terry is known for to this very day, wearing a red vest and a white t-shirt with the sleeves torn off, while trading the white sneakers for his now trademark red Converses. Mark of the Wolves takes place a decade after the events of Ryu Bout, and Terry's design changes to reflect the time skip. I'm being 100% honest when I say this might honestly be one of the best character redesigns in video game history, let alone fighting games. He trades the vest for a brown bomber jacket and wears his hair out to shoulder length instead of a ponytail. There's no way a Capcom and SNK crossover fighter was ever going to leave this guy out, though it's interesting that he's not positioned as the big SNK rep opposite Ryu, who has Kyo as his rival instead. KOF was the bigger fighting game series at that point, so it makes sense, and it also led to him being rivals with Ken, who at least aesthetically is even more fitting than Ryu. Terry's voice actor in the CVS games is Satoshi Hashimoto, who'd voiced Terry in all of his video game appearances from the very first Fatal Fury game all the way up to King of Fighters 13. He also provided the voice of Kim in the same games, Capcom vs SNK included, as well. With that done, let's head into his moveset. Terry is an interesting character moveset-wise. At first glance, if you were to just look at his moves over the years independent of their motions, one might say he has some Shoto traits. He has a projectile, an anti-air, and a horizontally traveling kick motion, so obviously he has the Shoto starter pack, right? Well, not exactly. Perhaps fittingly for a Fatal Fury character, Terry sidesteps a lot of the traditional Shoto conventions. His fireball is grounded, his most well-known anti-air is a charge move, and his traveling kick is an overhead. And that's not even getting into some of his other moves. Even with that in mind, Terry's traditionally meant to be a somewhat approachable jack-of-all-trades character, and that extends to his Capcom vs SNK appearances as well. He has a command normal, rising upper, done with down forward and heavy punch. This one was first introduced in King of Fighters 97. It bears mentioning that KOF sometimes changes up legacy movesets and properties depending on the game. More on that in a bit. His first special move is Power Wave, Terry's ground-based projectile done with a quarter circle motion.
Power Wave!
He's had this since the first Fatal Fury game. Burn Knuckle is a horizontally traveling punch attack with a bit of startup that usually knocks down, done with a quarter circle back and punch.
Burn Knuckle!
This is also a Fatal Fury 1 original. Crack Shoot is Terry's equivalent to the Tatsu, done with a quarter circle back motion and kick.
Crack Shoot!
It's amazing how much of his legacy moveset comes from that first Fatal Fury game. Rising Tackle is Terry's anti-air, and interestingly, it's done with a flash kick motion and punch.
Rising Tackle!
In some games, Terry actually loses this move in favor of other anti-air options. Mark of the Wolves is an interesting example. He loses the move, but it goes to Rock Howard instead, who was raised and trained by Terry and incorporates a mix of Terry and his father Geese Howard's moves into his moveset. Before we move on to his supers, let's talk about CVS1's unlockable character variants, EX characters. EX characters were alternate versions of characters that can be unlocked by beating the game in arcade mode with the groove representing the character's respective company. So, for example, beating the game with Sakura and Capcom Groove unlocks EX Sakura for purchase in the shop. Once you purchase them in the shop, they can be selected by holding start on the character select screen when highlighting the character. Terry's EX form in CVS1 isn't too radically different, but has two immediately noticeable changes. For one, his Power Wave has its range massively reduced, making it more akin to how it functions in some of the earlier KOF games.
Power Wave! Power Wave!
Terry also loses Rising Tackle, getting a new move altogether, Power Dunk, done with a Dragon Punch motion in any kick, the strength determining the height and distance of the move.
Power Dunk!
He first gets this in Fatal Fury 3, Terry having developed the move and name from his affinity for basketball, which has been showcased in official art and even some character endings in Fatal Fury. Terry's first super is Power Gazer, done with a quarter circle back, quickly moving the down back, and then hitting forward and punch.
Power Gazer!
This is based off of his Desperation attack in Fatal Fury 2, where if you were low enough on health, your character gained access to Desperation moves which could help turn the tide around. It's one of the earlier examples of a comeback mechanic I can think of in fighting games. Terry's other super is by far his most iconic move, the legendary Buster Wolf.
Are you okay? Buster Wolf!
This comes from Mark of the Wolves and is probably his most well-known special attack. The light and heavy versions slightly differ in that the latter does more damage and hits, and this reflects the two variations of the move in Mark of the Wolves. The light version is the S-Power version, and the heavy version is the P-Power version. During Mark of the Wolves' development, they initially planned to call the move God Geyser Twin, but thought it sounded unfitting. Perhaps the most iconic part of the attack is the "Are you okay?" voice line that plays when the move is initiated.
Are you okay?
Which, all things considered, is a pretty polite thing to ask before wrecking someone's face with this attack. The line itself has a surprisingly wholesome origin though. SNK director Yasuyuki Oda, who worked as a planner on Garo, was visiting an amusement park in Los Angeles in 1998 and went on a water ride that ended with him getting completely soaked. According to Oda, a kid ran up to him and asked if he was okay, and the experience stuck with him enough that he took it back to the development team, and the rest is history. Personally speaking, while the Capcom vs SNK version of the move is neat, I don't think anyone, even SNK themselves, have managed to perfectly recreate the audio-visual design and feedback of the original incarnation of the move. There's just something about the sound design for the OG that sounds crunchy in the best way possible, and immediately communicates how much that attack hurts. It's his most recognizable move by far and frequently shows up whenever Terry crosses over into other games, notably fighting EX Layer and Smash Bros. It's even been parodied by completely unrelated characters. While scripting this video, I kind of wondered, is there any fighting game character with a gap between their initial debut and the debut of their most iconic attack larger than Terry? Characters like Ryu and Scorpion were pretty much born with their most iconic moves, but there's an impressive 8 years between Fatal Fury 1 and Mark of the Wolves. Here are Terry's colors. The blue color is based on his Player 2 costume from Fatal Fury 2 onwards. I want to talk about the particular stage in CVS1, since it seems to be an intentional shoutout to perhaps Terry's most well-known stage, his Fatal Fury 2 stage. It is one of the more basic stages in the game, so I won't spend too much time dwelling on it, as I don't want to squeeze blood from a stone. Terry, being the hungry, traveling wolf he is, often has stages depicting a life on the road. There's the original Fatal Fury 2 stage, his Real Bout 2 stage, which appears to be a truck stop, and his Mark of the Wolf stage, which is likely another send-up of his Fatal Fury 2 stage. The Fatal Fury 2 stage in particular takes place in West Albuquerque, New Mexico. Funnily enough, you can see Mount Rushmore in the background of the stage, even though Mount Rushmore in real life is several states away in South Dakota. In the CVS1 version of the stage, there is no such thing, only nondescript rock formations, which is probably more faithful to New Mexico overall. The stage opens with a visual of the train heading straight towards the screen before quickly switching views to its side, where our fighters appear on an adjacent freight train car.
Hey, come on!
Like the actual Fatal Fury 2 stage, it takes place on a moving flatbed freight railroad car. There's another train that moves alongside it for the duration of the stage, though it moves farther away the longer the stage goes on. The train has the words Orion Pacific on the main freight car. Orion Pacific isn't a real freight company, but it is more than likely inspired by the real-life American freight company Union Pacific, which operates primarily in the Midwest and Pacific parts of the US. There seems to be actual passenger cars on this second train though, so Orion Pacific must operate general passenger service as well. The Orion Pacific train keeps pace with the main train for a bit before pulling back, revealing the vast desert range in the background. There's some neat parallax scrolling going on with the background and the little bits of foliage. I'm a sucker for some good parallax scrolling, so it's always nice to see it in fighting game backgrounds. After a while, way in the distance, you can see the Orion Pacific train again, its tracks having presumably moved farther out. You get a better view of all of the train cars now as it manages to again keep pace with the main freight train. One small but neat detail was how the train occasionally hits a bump, which bumps the characters on the stage as well if they happen to be standing still. The stage theme is Stage of Terry, Higher and Higher. I'll be honest, this stage theme doesn't particularly stand out to me too much. The main melody kind of drones on a bit too long for my taste, but to the song's credit, there's some really good percussion going for it. That said, that's all there really is to this stage. It's not much, but I thought it deserved to be highlighted since it's explicitly meant to be Terry's stage. I mentioned earlier that Terry's design is an example of beauty and simplicity, but that's just my personal opinion. But in the interest of seeing what others think, I decided that I wanted to get an outside opinion on the matter, so I invited fellow Terry Bogard appreciator and friend of the channel, Shockbrawler, on. Shock does a lot of content, primarily focusing on fighting games and beat-em-ups, and I'm personally a big fan of his ongoing Stage Select video series, where he highlights arcade-centric gaming locations in the Northeast US tri-state area. So, Shock, what's your personal favorite design incarnation of Terry?
Now, for me, my favorite incarnation, or I'd rather say my favorite look for Terry, is pretty much his Garou Mark of the Wolves outfit. Now, there's something about this that really tells volumes when you take a really look into it. Personally, when you really think of like characters that have aged, or I want to say that have matured over the years, this is what I definitely get from this. Terry not only carries experience, and even from the day that he defeated Geese once and for all in Rio about Fatal Fury, it looked like he finally transitioned from just moving on, and he was able to raise Rock on his own, and even then, you can tell that Terry has gotten through a lot of experiences from that day and moving forward, that he had to change the way that he looks, and he looks a lot more calm, he looks a lot more relaxed, but he's still not far away from being able to take into getting into serious situations and being able to handle them appropriately. Mind you, this is still the same guy who enjoys fighting people, but just now he's more older, he's more wiser, he's basically now a little bit more mature, and there's a reason that people love this outfit. There's just something about it that just says, hey, I like talking to this dude. I don't mind actually having a milkshake and, eating lunch with him. He looks like a pretty cool guy that will honestly tell some pretty cool bad jokes, maybe dad jokes, mind you, but at least he'll make you smile and definitely is good company to be around with. And on top of that, I really love the jacket. The jacket is, man, it's amazing. And plus, it's so simple, but yet it's effective. While I do like his classic, meaning the red hat and the red vest with a star in the back, Garou Terry just tells volumes of how much a person has gone through from the very beginning to seeking revenge to now simply just defending Southtown from an upcoming evil. And reminder, City of the Wolves is coming pretty soon, so I'm curious to see if not only the look is going to be the same, but if there's going to be anything new with the outfit. Like, is there going to be like more patches around the jacket? Or, what's the animation going to be like? Honestly, if I really wanted to think of Terry Bogard, I'm actually glad that this also appeared in KOF 15, because seriously, this is the one costume that I've always wanted to see Terry back in any new game, and I'm just so glad that this is there, but kind of sad that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate didn't have it, but that's okay. At least in KOF 15, this is definitely a welcome addition for this. And yeah, that's pretty much my favorite look or favorite incarnation of Terry.
In Capcom vs SNK 2, Terry doesn't really change too drastically. Most characters that had an EX form in CVS 1 ended up having their EX exclusive stuff incorporated into their CVS 2 moveset, and that goes for Terry as well. So now he gets both Rising Tackle, done with its normal input,
Rising is definitely the art of the combination attack,
as well as Power Dunk.
Power attack! Power attack!
Here are Terry's special character intros.
Geese. Live and let die. Fight!
The Geese intro in particular is taken from the special intro he has in the Fatal Fury games from Fatal Fury 3 onwards, though it's missing the little Geese word bub with the Fatal Fury games displayed.
Soraya! Live and let die. Fight! 出た。使えよ。後悔するぞこれ。This is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
手加減なしだぜ、テリー。
This is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
As I mentioned in the previous video, every character in CVS2 has unique windscreen dialogue with every other character on the roster, and going over every single one for Terry would make this video prohibitively long, but here's some win quotes in particular I found amusing. This one is of course referring to Joe Higashi, who also practices Muay Thai. He, Sagat, and King all practice it and have dialogue reflecting it in CVS too. And here's a fun one Terry has if Hibiki is on his team. I guess if you refer to yourself as a hungry wolf enough, someone's bound to believe you might actually be one. That leads us to another bit of unique team dialogue. The werewolf she's referring to is almost assuredly John Talbane from the Darkstalkers series. Terry gets a special win pose against Rock as well.
Okay!
This is a recreation of the special win pose he has in Garrow against Rock. Here are all of Terry's colors. One messed up but unfortunate truth of fighting game history is that SNK doesn't get their due for their contributions to the genre, at least in the same way Capcom does. And that's a shame, because between Samurai Showdown, KOF, Last Blade, Art of Fighting, and of course Fatal Fury, among others, there's so much fighting game brilliance that deserves to be acknowledged. At the least though, they seem to have largely been getting their flowers in the last few years, and Terry's been at the forefront of that. He was added as a playable character in Fighting EX Layer developed by Arica, who also developed the Street Fighter EX games. His biggest push into the public consciousness by far though would be his addition to Smash Bros. Ultimate in the game's first character pass. Personally, Sora is my favorite addition to that roster because I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan, but I think Terry is by far the coolest addition. It was really cool seeing Sakurai do Terry's presentation as less of a game director and more of an ultra SNK fanboy. You know it's real when he starts busting out the Hyper Neo Geo 64 lore. Fatal Fury proper is finally returning with a new canonical entry, City of the Wolves, and he'll be sporting his Mark of the Wolves design as well. It's been a good time to be a Terry fan as of late. That's going to do it for this video. Huge thanks again to Shockbrawler for stopping by, and check out his channel linked in the description. Everyone take care, and I'll see you next video.